Chapter 6. The Storm. Miałjeża Palace probably in Polish? At least I would assume so, although that looks more like a factory. This almost looks like a train station. Dust to dust. It was one of those blistering summer days when the asphalt melts, the grass withers, and the air smothers those brave enough to step outside. Despite the heat, it felt like the whole village was at the funeral. I stood there, surrounded by people weeping over their loss, looking at the rosaries they clutched in their fists. Something tightened in my chest. For a brief, chilling moment, I thought I saw Bartek's face among the crowd. But no, I buried him in the barrows myself, and nobody there even knew that he was dead. Bartek was not the reason we gathered in the churchyard. The body of a hunter had been found in the forest. The circumstances of their death were unclear. It was our doing, my doing, and the death had tipped the scales. Did anyone suspect that I was responsible for the death? I didn't think so. To them I was just a strange girl, harmless and far from home. They looked at me but didn't really see me. I could feel the tension seething around me. This death, this funeral had pushed the community, already wary and frightened by the recent disappearances in the forest, to the edge. The press had swarmed to the funeral like flies. They were reporting on how the illegal logging was a danger to both the ecosystem and human lives. The police were watching the crowd with disinterest as they leaned lazily against the trees. Suddenly, Puszcza Białowieża had become politically charged and the hottest place to be in Poland. And it wasn't only local politicians and activists from both sides who caught wind of the commotion. The Minister of Environment himself had driven to Białowieża to attend the funeral. He was standing next to the priest conducting the ceremony, surrounded by police and what looked like a handful of bodyguards. The coffin went down and the crowd stirred. Everyone started lining up to throw a handful of dust on the coffin or put flowers on the grave. I got swept by the crowd and found myself face to face with Anya. Everyone keeps pretending that he's just missing, but I know that Bartek is dead. She looked me in the eyes. You're such a cute guy, you know? It must be hard for you too. She patted my arm. If you ever wanted to talk, you know where to find me. I'm really sorry for your loss, I said from the bottom of my heart. I wish things could be different. Anya shook her head. One more thing. I know you think you're helping, but have you ever asked anyone what they need? I looked over her shoulder at the crowd. It was clear that many people there felt that we were not helping. On the contrary. And the minister knew how to use that sentiment. I watched in disbelief as the priest handed him the mic. He wasn't someone you'd call a good speaker. He repeated some platitudes, but it was clear he'd only come to show his face and tighten the leash on the local logging companies. The crowd listened, silent. I realized the conflict was only going to escalate. He was determined to push on with the logging. But they didn't realize a proposal to stop the logging was already being discussed in the EU Parliament. Victory was within our grasp. We were ready to negotiate. Where there's a will, there's a way. It was high noon. The sun was at its most merciless and the world was almost white with heat. The air smelled of herbs, bark and tree sap. Insects buzzed lazily in the high grass, stunned by the summer sun. The day was stifling as we set up the protest. The whole clearing was decorated with banners and we all had our placards. The banner we'd hung on the National Park headquarters the week before was just a warm-up. Wood is the enemy of the forest was our main slogan, but there were many more. I wrote something constructive, sure. Make the whole Puszcza a national park, demanded my sign. It was a viable solution. I thought the whole Puszcza would be protected and people could still earn money on tourists. There were so many of us. People kept coming to the camp, asking questions, looking for ways to help. Students, activists, even Greenpeace with banners reading "Stop Logging" and "Respect EU Law." The pushchair was watching us. Every time a gust of wind was bringing the wet smell of the forest to my nostrils, I felt her strong, steadfast presence. She knew that we were doing everything in our power to save her. For centuries, my family served the pushchair, burning villages and hunting down people who dared to hurt her. And now, I was the last Garo of my lineage. What legacy did I want to leave behind? The pressure was almost palpable, and tempers were flaring. "Everyone knows what to do?" Olga asked, looking at my pack. "I'll keep the security guards occupied," nodded Lisa. "And I'll guard the push perimeter," growled Daniel. The weasels were in their positions among the protesters as agreed. That left the cops to me. "I think that we should keep talking," I said. "It's not too late for a peaceful solution." "Yeah, good luck about that," Olga nodded with a bitter expression. The police were nervous, huddling in groups and shouting at each other, and everyone was in their way. They clearly didn't want to be there. It was apparent that they were waiting for something. It reached a boiling point when the minister arrived for a photo op. I took it as a good sign. We could use his presence to our advantage in more ways than one. I knew he was in for a nasty surprise. The reporters closed in on him, shooting uncomfortable questions about the legality of the logging and his forestry policy. In hindsight, you could argue that what happened next set a chain of events in motion that had life-changing consequences for many. But it all started centuries earlier, when the first wolf cubs were stolen and the mourning wolf mother asked my foremothers for help. Everything that happened next, the burning villages, my grandfather escaping to America, my mother running away from my father, my return to Białowieża, was a direct consequence. The members of my sept had already moved to their positions, and I also had my part to play. I don't know if that's good or not. Olga raised her eyebrow. "If you think there's any sense in talking to them," she smirked, "now's the fucking time." She grabbed me by the elbow and literally dragged me across the clearing to where the minister and his people were standing. As we were pushing through the crowd, I planned what I was going to say. I had it all planned out and felt quite confident, but Olga had her own plans. "Minister, Minister," she yelled. "Do you have a moment to talk about what's really going on in the forest?" He looked at us coldly, like we were vermin. His eyes were distinctly dark and lifeless, like a shark. I thought suddenly. "No," he said, smiling. "We don't talk to terrorists." I put my hand on Olga's shoulder and felt how tense she was. Her muscles vibrated, resisting the change. "He's not worth it," I whispered. "We'll find another way." The activists, humans and werewolves alike, listened as we told them what had happened. The atmosphere was tense. We prepared ourselves for the worst case scenario. "Okay, let's move," I heard someone shout. "Move it, people, move it. You know what to do." And they did. There was a lot of laughter and friendly pushing, chains clinking, and some people darted up to trees to seat themselves on the branches. Well, I didn't have other plans, because I had no willpower. I helped to form the human chain. "Hey," I heard. "Get those arms behind you. That's it. Attaboy." "Oh, it hurts," moaned the man's voice. "Next time do some yoga beforehand, huh? That's it, people. Open your heart so you can hold your wrists behind your backs." I threaded my arms through the arms of the people to my left and right, and then grabbed my wrists behind my back. It was tight on my shoulders, hot and very sweaty. We sat down, one long human chain, and watched the loggers and police as they approached, and then stopped. The sun shone and it was calm, almost serene. The talk started there and then. I could see that the minister was an apt politician and that he could smell a deal for himself in it all, but I didn't really care. We'd gotten what we wanted. They started to talk. Peace talks. When the talk started, we weren't alone. After the live stream with the Beatles, the loggers had attracted a lot of negative press. People had been moved and had started coming to our camp looking for ways to help out. So we started talking, and it became big. I don't know what tipped the scales in the end. The press, the international attention, the local interests coming together, our passion. Finally an agreement was within our reach, but the talks weren't easy. The state forest, the woodworkers, the local population, ecologists, scientists, activists, everyone wanted something. At least we'd managed to trick the loggers into cutting trees in a strict reserve, and the footage we captured gave us an upper hand. I was by no means an expert, but I wanted to play my part in the proceedings. I kept out of sight and acted behind the scenes. There was a lot of misinformation spreading around the talks, and the activists needed someone cunning and quick-witted to weed out the fake news. The talks went on and on. Everyone at the scene had their own opinion and their own point of view, and I had mine. In the middle of it all was, of course, the spruce bark beetle. How could something so small cause such a gigantic uproar? The beetle had always been a part of the forest ecosystem, pointed out one of the ecologists. But the recent droughts made the spruce more susceptible than ever, the foresters countered. We have to cut down the trees to stop a total disaster. I saw one problem with this approach. Yeah, we're not spending our willpower just yet. I didn't trust a word that came out of the officials' mouths. The beetle was not a reason for the logging, it was an excuse. You fetishize the forest, scoffed one of the officials. People cultivated it for hundreds of years and it cannot survive without our help. He's right, you want to take our forest from us. A group of locals attacked the activists. You're not from here and you tell us how to live our lives. They looked at the pushcha as if it was yet another state-owned commercial forest, but it wasn't. If they had to change the lifestyle to save this unique ecosystem, maybe they should. Opinions clashed, tempers flared, but eventually new constructive ideas started to emerge. At least one of them caught my attention. I mean, winning the local populace is definitely essential. But I like the national park idea. I think this is more important though. It struck us that if we won the local populace to the cause, everything would be easier. If people saw the forest, not the wood, as their local treasure, preventing the loggers from breaking the law would be much easier. It was a long and a hot day. I rubbed my eyes. I was so tired. I could barely keep them open. My head was spinning. I kept going. What was a little heat stroke when so much was at stake? Of course they had to make it dramatic. There were cameras, there were lights, and the negotiations lasted all day long. We reached the first draft of an agreement literally at sunset. I had no doubts they'd only decided to stop the logging because they realized there was something in it for them. But at the moment I just looked at the sky and laughed. I felt overwhelming relief. And then my exhaustion caught up with me. I found a quiet spot, sank to the ground and fell asleep. Epilogue. The New Hope. A new hope. I never thought it would end like this. Yeah, sure, the humans were important, but they were the problem we needed to solve, not the problem solvers. And yet, in the coming weeks, they proved to be just that. They had plans for education, for patrolling the forest, for making a permanent camp near Białowieża. It wasn't the war Olga had talked about, but it was good. There still was hope, and I felt relief. It was quiet, the logging had stopped, and I was proud I'd had a hand in it. I talked with people, listened to their ideas, and shared their enthusiasm. We planned, we joked, we laughed. At some point, I found myself sitting near an old local woman. She smiled at me, all wrinkles, missing teeth, and a bad attitude. So, you're the young Borodichovna people have been talking about? She said when I shared my water with her. Yeah, I answered, unsure of what would happen next. She laughed. I was a little worried when I first heard about you. I mean, goddamn werewolves always make such a mess. What are you talking about? I asked, trying to play it cool. Don't try that with me, young lady. I knew your grandpa when he was young. She winked at me. The problem is you're always looking for another glorious battle, she scoffed. So we're useless? I sighed. Don't be stupid. You act on impulse like children or animals. When you want to do something, you just do it. She laughed. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. She smiled at me. But this time you managed to actually help do something good. We'll see what happens next. I smiled, satisfied. Time would tell if she was right. The crossroads. We gathered in the clearing in which I'd first woken up as a gado. Lisa stood in the middle of the clearing, the wolf and the weasel by her side. Now, she said, looking at Cornel and Olga, you two, you need to solve this, today. Olga nodded. There was anger in her eyes. It won't last. The peace won't last, she barked at Cornel. I should have stopped you. Then we wouldn't be in this situation. That night was long and full of hope. Olga talked with Cornel and Kim and Pat for a very long time, trying to convince them to stay in Białowieża. They weren't fond of the idea. I watched them go. Olga approved of my decision. Lisa and our patrons made sure that we did right by Garo law and the Sept matters were resolved. But it didn't cover everything that had happened that summer, though, so some consequences would have to unravel with time. Despite everything that had happened, Anya managed to get out of it all alive. She left a few days later. We would like each other's posts from time to time and talk in the comments occasionally, but the messages became scarcer and scarcer, and one day I noticed she stopped following me on social media. But it was all still ahead of me. For now, the first chapter of my new life was coming to an end. I'd come to Białowieża to learn something about my roots, and now I know them. And knowing them, I could finally grow in the land of my ancestors, repay my family's debts, and perhaps even make a real home here. But I loved the Pusha, and I knew she was watching over me. Fireflies. Your story is almost over. This might be a good time to take a last look at your character sheet. Alright, we'll do that then. Name Maya Iskra Bordich, age 24, profession students. Not anymore. Nationality American, breed Homid, auspice Ragabash. Rank Kliath. A young Garo not yet of any significant rank. Okay. Renown, bit of glory, more honor and wisdom. We're healthy. My family history, yeah. Someone clearly thought that there was a werewolf among my ancestors, and damn, they were right. My grandfather burned a village because he was doing what the wolf mother asked him to do. I joined the protests to live up to my legacy. I managed to stop the logging. My goal was to earn glory, honor, and wisdom. Okay, and we've got some relations: Morning Wolf loyal, Winter Weasel cautious, Anya neutral, Bartik dead, Daniel cautious, family complicated. Kim gone, Cornel gone, Lisa neutral, Olga cautious, Pat gone. And Pusha and the police are sympathetic and the press is loyal. Okay. Late that night, I was sitting with my back against a tree, older than the country I was born in, watching the stars. They were moving, dancing around me. It was only after a moment that I realized they were fireflies. I watched the bugs glowing with their inner lights. writing fleeting love poems in the dark vellum of the night. I smiled, thinking about their brief, beautiful, intense lives. Then I stood up and went back to our camp. We still had so many important things to do. The end. You have finished Heart of the Forest. Cubs gather around the fire and listen to the story of Maya Borodich, known among the Garo as Iskra of the Glasswalkers, Ragabash of the Morning Wolf Mother Pack. Her tricks hurt only those who deserved it. Maya managed to negotiate a fragile peace and stop the harvesters. The change had begun. The first protests against the logging of the Białowieża forest took place in 2016. The game was loosely inspired by those events. All characters and events depicted in this game are entirely fictitious. You don't mean there's no real werewolves, huh? Alright. Oh god. That wasn't necessary. That's certainly a creepy song. I'd assume... Wait, is this the song? Or is this the song? That's a Belarusian band. These names look Polish to me.
Терпел, я отрывал, я шагу подставлял и восьял по борьбе, большаки только две, господар не срывал, словно зло отказал, шас пришел, шас настал. Стал я тем, кем я стал. Это моя дорога, это мой волчий знак. Я не вернусь до дому, хай состоит.
I actually like the song.
Это моя дорога, это мой волчий знак.
But it stops there. You can probably look it up somewhere on YouTube and find it. Yep, so anyway, that was the end of Werewolf the Apocalypse Heart of the Forest. As far as I know, there will be future parts of Werewolf the Apocalypse. I don't know if they'll be connected story-wise. But there'll be one last thing I want to show you, and we'll have to switch over to Steam for that one. Alright, so before I'm gonna leave you with this series, we're gonna take a look at how you played. A news post by the developers on Steam where they showed us, it's actually not that long, just one quick overview of which options people chose, just very general though, so I'll quickly read that to you. Hi there, World of Darkness fans. We have some fresh data about the way you played Heart of the Forest, and boy did it surprise us. Just to recap, the game features more than 200,000 ways leading to one of the 5 main endings, and you can deeply personalize your character and playthrough. So for a game about rage, it's surprising that you frequently chose more peaceful approaches. Many players prefer to negotiate over going frenzy and attacking everything that moves. This is expressed in the auspices under which your Mayas were born, see below. So we were Ragabash. We actually, interesting, we went for the least chosen option out of all of them. What are the others actually? Thurge, Garo born on the crescent moon, ritualists, spirit masters, shamans, and mystics. The wan light of the crescent moon illuminates the spirits and the riddles they tell. Philodox, werewolves born under the half moon, judges and balancers, caught between extremes, man and wolf, Garrow and human, adaptation and tradition, spirit and flesh. Such Garrow have to be able to make wise decisions on behalf of their fellows. So that was the most chosen option, and then it was Furge. Galliards, werewolves born under the gibbous moon, renowned for their memories and their creativity. They are destined to be storytellers and law keepers. And Arun, Garrow born under the full moon. They are spirit warriors, the deadliest and most vicious of their kind. Another great surprise is the fact that every auspice was used by a significant number of players. We love the fact that there wasn't a single one you collectively wouldn't want to play. Yep, our auspice was Ragabash. Alright, so there we go. That's the end of Werewolf the Apocalypse, Heart of the Forest. I hope you enjoyed the game and my playthrough of it. Thanks for watching it. I'll see you guys next time.